Welcome to the Wellness Wednesday Lunch Bunch. I'm Denise O'Malley, the founder of You Define Wellness. And today we're going to be talking about spiritual wellness. Before I jump into this, I want to introduce my panel participants. As you know, I invite providers from the You Define Wellness Network to come in and have a conversation with me. And we're inviting you to eavesdrop in on our conversation. So joining me today is Brenda Hardwick, the owner of The Light of Nature. And don't worry, you're going to see these again, so you'll be able to copy down the information. I have Eva Vennari with the Elevate Institute. And I hope and join us here very soon is Jane Sanders with Purpose Whisperer. So with that being said, I just want to say welcome, you guys. I really appreciate you being here with me today. This is always fun for me, and I hope it's going to be fun for you. And we've got a topic that, quite frankly, if you think about the different dimensions of wellness, okay, so there's 8 in our book. Some people say 12, some say 13, some say 3, some say 4. I say 8. And it's physical, emotional, financial, social, spiritual, intellectual, occupational, and environmental. Hey, I remembered those off the top of my head. You guys should be really proud of me.
Good job.
Of those 8, the one that gives me the greatest challenge is spiritual, because that's what I've struggled the most with. So my first question to you guys is this. When we're talking about a dimension of wellness and well-being and spiritual wellness, what does that mean to you? Can you define it at all? Eva, you're laughing. You get to go first.
Absolutely. I can attempt to define it because spirituality is so personal. It's a personal journey to everyone. And I think it becomes a space where people feel a little bit insecure because there is no, oftentimes, I should say, there are no feedback informations that other people around you can say, yep, that's true, or no, that's not, without a lot of argument. And so it's a very personal space. It's something that for me, I was very lucky to, and I'll just briefly say this, is both of my children are also very sensitive energetically. And we were able to open up and share experiences with each other that strengthened our spiritual muscle. So we believed quicker what we were experiencing as truth, as opposed to, well, I'm not sure, and I'm not quite, in this space of being aware that I'm actually experiencing something real. So it's very personal. It's very hard to define. And I'll leave it there.
Okay. Okay. Brenda, what about you?
Spiritual wellness, for me, it's first recognizing that your spiritual well-being is part of who you are.
Yeah.
Whether you are embracing wherever you're at in spirituality, or trying to ignore it, or you've put it up on a shelf and I'll deal with that later, that determines how it comes through you. I believe everyone has a light inside that they can shine, but most people have taken it and stuck it in a closet and they forgot what closet they put it in. So one of the things that I endeavor to do is to help people find their light, because when your light is shining, you draw to you the people that can support you. My children are both very intuitive and very gifted, and it's amazing to me to watch and see the gifts that they got from me and the ones that came from ancestral, because there's a whole bunch of stuff out there that I've learned, and I learned that my mother was gifted, and so was her whole family. I never knew, because it was something that nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
Right.
But one day I told her, well, when I retired, I said, well, I'm working with energy and healing people. And my mom said, well, I can do that. I've done that before. And I was just like, say what? Because she never said anything about it, but it made me look at family and look at my kids a little differently. And it helps me help other people figure out where their intuitiveness comes from and exactly what helped shaped it, whether for positive or for negative, as they were growing up and as they became adults. And most of us still struggle with that no matter where we are.
My struggle, the greatest challenge I had is for the first half of my life, more than the first half of my life, I confused religion with spirituality. I didn't understand. And in my family, we stopped going to church when I was about 5 years old. And then my church from then on was whatever church my friend belonged to, whose house I spent Saturday night at. And so, I mean, every denomination you could possibly imagine, I got exposed to. And never, ever in any of that period of time did anybody talk about spirituality, or if they did, I didn't hear it. And so I was in this mass confusion, and organized religion didn't work for me. The Actually, our religion was the Masonic organization, because
Mm.
we belong to the Masonic youth organizations. I come from a very large Masonic family. And hey, they have a Bible, they have prayers, they have ritualism. That was my exposure to understanding religion. And never in that course was spirituality ever spoken about. And it wasn't until I met this long-haired hippie dude named Bill that I married that I started even exploring and understanding what spirituality is. And I don't think I'm that unusual in terms of having that experience. I think there's a lot of people out there who are confused by the two and don't know what to do about it.
Now, religion is a man-made thing,
Mhm.
and it so my one of the books I've written, allowing the magic, allowing the miracles, um, it was a guided thing, and I've been able to see angels since I was 3.
Oh my.
That's my first memory. Pretty sure they were there before that, but that's my first memory. And they guided me. They told me, you don't need to tell your parents that you can see us. I was like, okay, I don't really tell them anything anyway, so that worked. And they've been with me ever since. And when I sat down to write this book, they said, this is what you're going to write. They gave me the title. The first thing they said was, okay, after the opening, they said, go look up the definition of religion. Okay, and I went and did that. What I found amazing to me, being a scholar and having a very literary background, the definition of religion used the word religious in part of the definition. I said, well, you can't do that. You can't use a form of the word to define a word. That,
Right.
no.
Closed
And
loop.
so, yes. And
Yeah.
so I kept looking, and I finally found the best description, and I included a piece of everything I saw in that piece of the book. But the one that made the most sense went back to like a 16th century person, and I can't remember the name, but they gave the clearest definition of the word. And I was like, interesting. I had to go that far back to find what the word is supposed to mean. And it was a Latin translation. But you're right. People don't know the difference between religion and spirituality. And that's the crux of the confusion that exists today for almost everyone who is just getting started.
I have a bit of a theory about that. And I think that religion, especially in the Dark Ages, was a way to bring community and a
Mhm.
sense of stability to a group of people that needed that structure. So that the divining structure, everything needs to be in a box for safety purposes. And being a fully Reformed Catholic myself,
My husband's one too.
yeah, it's a good foundation. And not to sound condescending, but I'm going to say this anyways. Once you're done with kindergarten, it's time to move on to first grade. And I think there's difficulty because there's a desire to grow as a human being. And I believe that our spirit says if we're not expanding and growing, then we're contracting and dying. And this is when chronic illness tends to sit in. If we're not expanding, then the chronic illness sits into the body. So where is there to grow in a religion? And I ask that not as a rhetorical question, but I think there's lots of room for an improvement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
religion is a box, and it really doesn't. I didn't grow up Catholic. I grew up Baptist, and I'm actually still a member of a Baptist church because Spirit has told me my light is needed there. Okay, I will go. And but the box, the difficulty with it is that people are afraid to go outside of it. And it doesn't matter what the walls of that box are, Catholic, Baptist, whatever.
Right.
That fear, and because humans are so intertwined and connected with fear, it exists in almost everything we have and we do on the 3D level. It holds people back. And I think you're very right that it keeps you from growing.
so let me ask you a question. I'm opening a can of worms here. So this was based on a comment that was on a YouTube video that we had. That I'm absolutely paraphrasing what was said to put a different twist on it a little bit, but the essence of it was that you can't believe in God if your philosophy is spiritualism.
No. Wow, that's a lot of confusion right there.
That's a lot of
A
confusion.
lot of confusion.
Yeah, no, I think that you have to define the God, because even in conversations around the Bible, you have two different references of two different beings being called and labeled God. In actuality, one was more of an elemental spiritual thing that was not creator God. And trying to compare the two, the angry, jealous God is not the same as our create. Like, I know Brenda's like, hell no. And so if you can come to a place where both things, if you will, without being disrespectful to God calling the thing, they exist in the same place, but one definitely is over the other. And so I think having a universal understanding that God is a power of creation from which we came, not what we've been taught as the hierarchical, masculine, jealous, angry God of the Bible. They're two different things.
So I agree. And here's the way I define that. So I use the creator when I speak of the divine rather than God. If you look, God has 72 different names. There are 72, Jehovah and Yeshua and well, Yeshua is Jesus, Yahweh, and so there are all these different names. With 72, why so many? Okay, and that was my question. Why so many? And the response I got was, well, because everybody thinks differently and everybody has to have a name, and because you all need names and labels are important. Here you go. Okay, cool. I use the creator because that covers everybody, and whatever your belief is, you know who I'm talking about.
See, I use universe, but yes.
And yeah. And it's what I tell everyone is, as important as names and labels are to us being human in this 3D level, the creator doesn't care what we call him, as long as we call. He, she, whatever. I don't like using it, but yeah. Just wants you to call. They don't care about the name you use. They don't care about how you're coming at them and the angels, my connection with them, I find it's comforting to me, because it doesn't matter what religion you look at, angels exist. They're in every religion. And when it comes to magic, I had my oldest boy, ask me one day, so how do you reconcile the things that you do with church and with the Bible? And I said, well, honey, when Jesus turned water into wine, What do you think that was? That was magic. That was magic. And when he raised Lazarus from the dead, what do you think that was? I said, so it's the same thing. It's just one's in a book and man has touched it and turned it and twisted it to meet man's needs. And the other is what I'm hearing directly from source. So you decide. Mm-hmm. And he's never asked me that question again. And every time I go to visit, and he's just in Colorado Springs, so he's not far, I work on him depending on what I see and what I think he needs. And he accepts it. So it works. But the questions he asks are the same questions that many people have, mm-hmm. because that's not what's taught in church.
Well, if it were, then we would have the empowerment.
Yes. Yes. Instead of the other way around.
Yes. Okay.
So spirituality is really encompassing whatever your belief system is. Is that a fair statement to make? As a very minor component of it, perhaps?
It's a piece.
It's a piece. It's really your belief systems, and it's very personal.
It's very personal.
Individual person, they've got to make that definition for themselves.
Yes.
And yeah. One question I have, because we talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness with employers, and that's our whole foundation and philosophy is that all 8 of those components make the human body. That's what goes into who we are. So what do you guys think about the thought of spirituality being discussed at the workplace?
Here's what I've discovered. If I can go first.
Go first.
In working with professionals who come to me because they have a physical chronic condition, whether that's aches and pains, arthritis, chronic fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, whatever that is, it's interesting to me, and it's noted every single time, that as soon as symptoms start to fade and they feel emotionally stronger, the freeways of the mind, the access to process old emotions, hurts, pains, karmic issues, ancestral things that are coming in with you, as we heal those, the conversation gears towards spirituality. But that's one-on-one. Mm-hmm. I've never been in a place where, the group conversation turns to spiritual, unless it started out with a group like this, where we're talking specifically about spirituality. It tends to be where we end up, certainly not the focus when we start.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to agree with you on that. Brenda?
Yes, I would agree. Yeah. We have all been taught that there are 2 conversations you stay away from in public. Politics is one. Hallelujah. But the other one is religion, and that's how it's couched. And mm-hmm. spirituality would fall under that umbrella because that's where people would put it. And the reason that it's been taught that way is because everyone is different. Mm-hmm. And what we tend to be taught through religion is that one way is better than another way is better than another way, when in reality, they are all the same way, but different. And that's not taught. Mm-hmm. So everybody feels that, this is what I was taught, this is how it is, and whatever you're being taught, that's wrong. Mm-hmm. So judgment enters in. Mm-hmm. In a large group, and I say large, meaning more than 5 people, mm-hmm. you are not ever going to get any form of agreement. Absolutely. It's not possible. And what you end up with is, yes, wherever the conversation started, if it ends on spirituality, you end up with people walking away being more confused than when they arrived, and questioning their own beliefs, but not knowing what to do or where to go with their questions. So if spirituality is where you want to go, that's where you start. rather than allowing a subject to migrate to that. What that does is the people that do not have the bandwidth to handle the discussion don't show up. And those that do show up are those that are curious, those that are looking, and those that are struggling. And last year, as much as we all would like to forget most of it, what I have seen is a large and wonderful awakening of gifts and power and acceptance and the finding of their light that they didn't even know they had.
Right.
And so people are questioning and wondering and asking. The people that I see that come to me when it comes to the work-life questions, the number one question I get is, do I stay in the job that I'm at? And number two is, I've got two opportunities. Do I go for them? And what I do is, I don't make the decisions for them. And most of the time, the angels won't tell them either, because if a decision is karmic or it's life path, the angels won't tell you what to do, because if you choose wrong, they don't want you saying, well, y'all told me. Okay, so they won't. But yes, they will support you on whatever decision you make. And that's the way they'll support you, whatever decision you make. What I tell folks is, you ask, what's good and right for you. But what most of us have forgotten is how to read our own signals in our own bodies and what that means, It always scares me to death when people say, well, my gut response is, because if you're feeling it in your gut, that's a no. That's a really, maybe you want to do it that way, but you're going to need help with that, and you don't ask. It doesn't mean don't do it, but it means you're going to need help and you need to ask for that. And everybody, I love watching the light bulb come on over their heads.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun when you see that. You mentioned there are two things that you don't talk about: politics and spirituality. I'm going to tell you there's three. We also add into that human sexuality. So those are the things that we're not going to bring in workplace wellness topics that are on any of these areas unless it's specifically requested, because there's too many opportunities for lawsuits to happen by an employee who might be disgruntled. But it's an incredibly important part to be able to include in a workplace wellness program for individual access for those people who want to seek it, because otherwise we have an incomplete program that's being developed.
That's very true.
You got to have the whole body that's covered, and that's all the dimensions. Eva, you're chopping at the bit about something, I can tell.
No. Because oftentimes the very block, the thing that's keeping a person from making a progression in their workspace, their relationships, their coworkers, whatever it is that's going on in the workspace, is spiritually bound.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is another theory of mine, you tell me if I'm thinking too much.
Never.
My theory is that the reason why most companies have a low committed amount, percentage of people participating in their corporate wellness is because there's a lack of that one-on-one. People really don't want to know about life-work balance. Blah. They really don't. And it's a myth anyways. You want to get into harmony. So this is, that's a whole nother conversation.
You'll be proud of me. I shot someone down on work-life balance on a Twitter post this morning and said, no, it's life harmony. So I was thinking everyone and did it. Okay.
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, and I think this ties right back into what Brenda was saying, and it really comes down to discernment. When you're listening to spirit message, guidance, who are you listening to? And do you understand, is this your higher self? Is it spirit from one of your guides? Is it ancestral? You need to know, because if you have something that is unseen on the other side of the veil, if you will, giving you information, and they don't have your highest good in mind, but their own, they're going to rule your world, and they're going to leave a path of destruction in your wake. And I've been been the benefactor, if you will, of those types of individuals who are like, I was doing it in the name of spirit. No, you're not. You don't even know who you're talking to. So the discernment, I think, is so important. And when you have somebody spearheading the company who may not have the discernment, this affects the whole company. It affects the whole environment. It affects everything. And so I think that spirituality, while it is hush and it's something that we shouldn't talk about in public spaces, it definitely is something that we should be talking to our leadership about one-on-one.
Yes, I would agree. Because where your leaders come from makes a difference, because the ripple effect that happens can either be very positive or very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's toxic, if you are awake and aware, and you're in the trickle down, you'll know it and you'll feel it. And then you have to figure out how to maneuver around that and do what you can to raise the vibration and raise the light back to where it needs to be. And that's not easy.
No, just be
I,
people, not companies.
yes. I heard a statistic yesterday that blew me away. They said since, I guess since January, and it may be later than that, I didn't really hear a date, but it's this year, that over 4 million people have quit their jobs.
Yes, yes.
And this is not people that didn't have a job to go back to or didn't have a job, but this is people who quit their jobs.
They were told to go back to the office.
And they said, no.
Nope.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So what is it that corporate America has missed, that they said, just come on back?
They're missing the human part.
Yes.
of
And
the-
because everybody was at home, however many months they were quarantined or locked down, not quarantined, but locked down, because we had to close everything, gave people the opportunity to come back to being human and to come back to being self. And before this year, we used to live to work,
Mhm.
and work to live.
Yeah.
And that has changed.
You know, in companies, first of all, let me just say that I made a comment that they've forgotten the human in human resources. Let me just say, qualified. I have met so many fantastic human resource professionals over the years. They are absolutely human. They absolutely care about their staff, but it's coming from higher up.
Yes.
And they're having, you know, there's been talk out there of how do we provide training to the leaders and people coming back to work? Who are the experts in it? We've never gone through this before, people.
That's right.
You know, we're creating the rules as we go along, but we have to learn that we have to relook at the workforce. And a lot of people are doing that right now.
Yes.
But yeah, the number of people who are saying, I'm not going back into the office anymore. I'll find a job, work from home. And there are a lot of those jobs out there.
Absolutely. There
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. I mean, when you have the search engines that have changed their parameters so that you can search for work from home or work remotely, and that is one of the key search criteria now. You know, it's a new evolution that we're in. And a lot of it has to do with people found a different life harmony.
Yes.
Said the wrong phrase, but they found a different life harmony. And while it was the transition to it was really difficult with kids being at home and daycare issues and, you know, everything going on, they found that they really liked being able to work when it was convenient for them.
Yes. And they got more done.
They got more
Yeah.
done.
Because they're happier.
They
Yeah,
were
they're
they were more
don't have that
productive.
commute time. You know, it still blows my mind when I happen to be out. I don't drive that much anymore, just because my commute is 13 stairs down. You know, it's not a very big commute. You don't need a car. But when I am out and about, it blows my mind how many people are commuting still, or how many people are still on the roads. But you know, people have found they don't like that. I used to commute years ago, 84 miles one way to work. Okay.
Whoa.
It took me an hour and a half. I drove from the Central Valley of California, Modesto, to downtown Oakland, California, 84 miles one way.
Wow.
The worst commute was the day before the 4th of July holiday when it took me 4 hours to get home. But
Wow.
I would come to work and people were like, "Oh my gosh, you live in Modesto. How long of a commute is it?" These were people who lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'd say, "Oh, it's about an hour and a half drive." And they're like, "Oh, that's not that bad. That's what my commute is."
Wow.
Commuting 3 hours a day, books on tape, that's great. I didn't have cell phone back in those days when I did that commute, but you can have conversations with people, get caught up on things. I love windshield time and turn the stereo off and turn the recorder on my phone and just verbally talk to myself and share ideas, put things down. But quite frankly, day after day after day of doing that, 3 hours a day, that adds up. 15 hours a week. We're looking at 60 hours a month when you could have been giving that to the people who matter to you the most. So
Yes.
it's a big, huge change that's been taking place.
Yes.
And that boils, let's bring it back down to spirituality. All of that goes into your spirituality. I'm a
Yes.
huge believer of that because
Yes.
every core of what your belief system is, um, and and that means your values, your ethics, what is it that's important to you in your life? That all goes into your spirituality. And so I think it's an important component of businesses. We're not going to bring in a talk about religion and spirituality to the workplace unless somebody specifically asks for it,
Right.
but having the resources available, I think, are just key. And understanding, for those who don't have or don't understand what the word spirituality means for their own selves, it's okay, wake up and saying, how do I find the right people to help me on this journey? That's my thoughts.
One of the things that we tend to forget is that we are a complex being.
Yep.
When you go to a doctor, when you go to a job, when you talk to a clergyman, regardless of religion, um, everybody tends to focus on one piece rather than looking at the whole being. And just like that old nursery rhyme song, the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone, we are connected. Everything, every
Yeah.
cell, every part of our being is connected. And if one piece is not right, if your spirituality is not correct, if it's not right for you, whatever that is, your health is affected. Your physical being is affected. Your sleep is affected. How well you produce whatever you're supposed to be producing is affected. Your love life is affected because we are an organism that is made up of all these different parts that fit together. And if you're only looking at one piece, you're missing a whole lot.
Well, Brenda, I am showing your contact screen. I'm going to take that as your final thoughts, unless you actually have another final thought you want to share.
Nope, that worked.
Okay, that was pretty awesome information. Thank you for that. Eva, your final thoughts.
I think it's riding on the coattails of what Brenda said. I'm so tired of hearing the phrase mind, body, spirit. It's like it's holistic. And unless you have blood to stop or a broken bone to set, that's allopathic, that's fine. But otherwise, how are they all connected? And quite frankly, you can even break a bone and have it relate to something that's going on spiritually.
That's right.
Something to think about. I'll leave that as food for thought.
Okay, that's good. Um, I just want to share a little bit about Udefine Wellness before we get off so we can capture this on the recording. If you're sitting here going, who are these Udefine Wellness people? We are a network, a community of independent health and wellness professionals through which we help the workplace. We provide an employee benefit program for healthy living. And it's all about access to the services of choice, independent services of choice, individual services of choice, and education, like we were talking about. And when I say we have a lot of modalities in our network, I'm not kidding. It's about 130 and it grows almost every single day. And we invite you, if you liked this event, check out some of our other events. You can go to our website. From there, you can find all the recordings under YDW Recorded. We have I don't know how many we have. We have probably 100 or more that are on there right now, different recordings to help you as you are on your healthy living journey, on your wellness path. Visit our website for the events page, as well as finding our events on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. And if you want to talk with me, let's talk. Here's my contact information. And last thing I'm going to put in here is at the end of all of it is that we put on events every year to just deliver to you the best wellness education that we can possibly come up with. And we have an event coming up on August 27th and 28th. Both of these ladies will be there, as a matter of fact, so you definitely want to check it out. It is free to the public. We have 3 tracks that we are doing. It's jam-packed with fantastic, some of the best people I could possibly ever tap into will be there. And as I said, it's free to the public, and we hope that you will join us for Transitions 2021. So that being said, ladies, I am in deep gratitude to both of you for being on here today. This has been fun for me. It's a great conversation. I wasn't sure where we were going to go with it, and you guys did not disappoint. So thank you very much for being with me today.
You're very welcome.
And those of you watching us live or through our recording, if I went too fast through those slides, you know, there's a little rewind button. You can go back and capture their information. But we hope to see you on another recording that we do very soon.